Hey guys, I'm Papa Pete back today because I wanted to put in my 2 cents about the M Network sale to Atari that just recently happened. Being a huge fan of both Atari, that was a system I had, as well as Intellivision. I played that when I was a kid because my brother-in-law had one. I still have his system today, and love collecting Intellivision games and love collecting Atari games, including the M Network games. Really special to me because, of course, I loved the Intellivision versions originally so much. I went out and I got a lot of the M Network ones during the crash. I've managed to complete my collection of M Network today. I have that here with me. Which way to put it here? Right there. So, let's go through some of the games. There's been a lot of conjecture about what this sale means, who actually even sold it to Atari, and what it could mean depending on who it was. But also which games are there. Even though we probably know which games are there now, there's still some other possibilities. There's still other games on the table. And I don't know. For me, this just doesn't seems like a win-win all around. It doesn't seem like nearly as big of a situation as many people are leading you on to believe. But anyway, right after this, we'll be right back to take a look at M Network.
Papa Pete, the old ass gamer. Papa Pete, the old ass gamer. If you haven't grown up by the age of 50, you don't have to.
For all of your Intellivision collecting needs, visit IntellivisionCollector.com. Intellivision Collector has many games from the 125 as well as the latest and greatest homebrews, including their upcoming release in conjunction with Intellivision Brazil, that is X-Rally, available later in May 2023. That's IntellivisionCollector.com. So I can remember when M Network was first sort of released that it was going to happen, how excited I was because I really wanted to get a lot of these different games. Of course, the history behind the whole thing is, as I know now, had no idea back then, APH Technological Consulting, they're the ones who sort of initiated the M Network idea and sort of clandestinely took it into meetings with Mattel Electronics. Glenn Hightower, who ran APH, took it in and basically sold them on the idea, if not so much on the fact that they could put out games for Atari or their games, like a lot of the Mattel Electronics at that time, the Blue Sky Rangers, they really didn't want to sort of step down to the level of the Atari, and that's their opinion, less so mine, because man, there's some amazing things on the Atari, and some of these games are amazing as well. But what he did convince them of, at the end of the day, there was only 2 or 3 million Intellivisions out there, and there are well over 10 million Ataris. So if they could produce good software for those Atari systems, it was just more money in the pockets of Intellivision and Mattel. So they did sell the idea, and M Network and APH started creating these games. But M Network was Mattel. It was Mattel Electronics. It was a division of that. The Blue Sky Rangers worked on those. Guys like Dave Akers, who are one of the most prominent Blue Sky Rangers, still making games for the Intellivision today. Some of the homebrews for Electronite. Did games like M Network Star Strike, for example. It was very much owned by Mattel. It was part of Mattel Electronics. And Terry Valesky, when he bought all the rights for Mattel Electronics back in the day in the Intellivision, M Network went along with it. And M Network more or less has passed on from person to person right through. And frankly, is my understanding, and maybe I'll be proven wrong in the future, but I thoroughly believe that M Network was a property of Intellivision Entertainment. And just, within the last year or so, Intellivision Entertainment said they were going to try licensing some of their games or doing whatever they could do. Well, I'm not getting into that whole situation because whatever happens. Whatever happened. So, but this is along the lines of what they're saying. If they've sold the rights for these games, they've actually sold the IPs. Now, second of all, let's go through all these games. First of all, what might and what might not be. Now, frankly, we already know 12 titles because they're available on the Atari VCS, right? But let's just go through the 17 M Network titles that were released. Then we'll talk briefly about the ones that weren't released or were unfinished or just, like I said, unreleased. But anyway, let's go through really quickly some of the other main ones. We got stuff like Super Challenge Baseball, Super Challenge Football, International Soccer. Okay, those 3 games now are available on the VCS. Absolutely, they're going to be part of that because, part of the licensing deal of this is not only to have the rights for these M Network titles and the M Network name, but is that they could expand upon them a little bit. They could take the IPs and expand it. Well, it's soccer, baseball, and football. Fine. There's nothing to protect there, really. There's nothing to give up. So to sell them is a no-brainer, right? And the same sort of holds true for Armor Ambush, which is one of them. Glorified combat is basically it. It was almost like combat from Triple Action on the Intellivision days back then. It was more so like that to me, like Triple Action, than it ever was like Armor Battle. But so this one again, it's sort of to me, yeah, great. We're gonna sell that if we get something out of it. Great. Expand upon it all you want. There's been so many different tank battle games and such out that it really big deal, right? Here's one that's a little more interesting, and that's Frogs and Flies. And I get a kick out of how many times I hear people talking about Frogs and Flies, and it's so much better than they tried to make one like it called Frog Bog on the Intellivision, when all the Intellivision games were the originals, right? Is it a little bit different? Yes. Is it more simple? Yes, it's more simple. Frog Bog can be kind of challenging. You put on all the difficulties, but anyway. But again, I'm going to tell you this right now. Is this one that you could give it? It's got a lot of appeal because it's a fun game. This is a very fun game right here. So Atari would love to have this game. And if they expand upon it, if Intellivision gives up the rights to Frog Bog, it's really probably not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a thing to give up. The gains are going to be higher, more significant than the losses, right? Outweigh the losses. So there's 5 games of the 12 that who really, are insignificant. If you get anything out of them, that's absolutely fine. So now let's get into some of the other ones that are a little bit different. And here we'll go to the very first one that is Air Raiders. And I enjoy this game. I really do like this game. Play it quite a bit. You do not. This is the only M Network game that does not have a counterpart on the Intellivision. And you might say, hold it, what about this other one I'll talk about later? Well, it did have a counterpart. The counterpart was never released. There's also another one that does have a counterpart, but it's a totally separate game. But those are almost like individual situations. But this one right here was just on its own. And I enjoyed it very much. Yes, there was games like Air Battle or something like that for the Intellivision that was being worked on, but it wasn't quite the same as this game either. But anyway, I would always consider this to be the only sort of independent game. So throw it in with a lot. Yes, it's a great teaser. You give it to Atari. Atari could do whatever they want with this, which was put on the VCS, right, already. And if they expand upon it, it's a fighter game. Well, there's thousands of fighter games out there right now. So, of course, they can expand upon that, and it really, there's again the benefits of selling the IP very much outweigh the negativity, the negative aspects of it. Let's talk about the 2 that were never released, but were also part, and they're available now on the Atari VCS. And the first one I talk about is Sea Battle, which Sea Battle was made for M Network back in the day, completely finished, but it was never released because it was 2-player only. And so it was never completed game. They sold Atari a completed game. They could put it on there. Is it a big deal? No. Again, Sea Battle, will there be lots of different games? Big friggin' deal. So what? So they're let them have Sea Battle. I have this thing here, flip it over the right way. I got my Atari Flashback 8. It already has Sea Battle on it, as well as other games, right? So Sea Battle's been around for a while. It's just never had anything but a mock-up box for M Network. So those rights have gone over. The other one that didn't get released is, again, it was a 2-player game, so it was done back in the day, but it was never released, and that's Sword Fight. Very interesting game. Put a little bit of video right here. I've not played it because I don't have the means of playing the 2-player game or anybody to play it here with. I should figure it out someday and play a little bit of Sword Fight just to try it out, or maybe get a VCS and try it that way. But anyway, again, I'm going to say this. It's a great thing to add into the package to sell because, big deal. We'll give that to you. You can expand upon it a little bit, whether it's going to be Jedi or whatever. You can do all kinds of things with it. But is it a big loss? Is it something that probably Intellivision, if they ever did get through the next stages, that they would regret giving up? I don't think so at this time. So it's not too bad. Okay. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8. There are 8 games. So the last 4 are probably the big ones that people might be saying, well, these are the ones they're giving up. I don't know. First of all, we got Astro Blast. And of course we got Space Attack right here. Space Battle, right? Astro Smash, Space Battle. You got Star Strike, which is Star Strike, no ifs, ands, buts about it, and Dark Cavern, which is Night Stalker. So you think, okay, they're giving up these games. They're allowing Atari to put those on the VCS. Well, like I've already said, those games are already on the flashbacks from the past. So they've already been licensed. Well, now they actually didn't just license them, they sold the entire rights to them. I'm going to say it again because I keep saying it's a big deal, okay? But then people say, but they can expand upon them. They can do their own expanded remasters and such. Well, they can, but they have to be careful because they didn't sell them the rights to the original Intellivision titles, which are precursors to all of these games. So, yes, they can make an expanded Dark Cavern, but they must be very clear that it's not Night Stalker. I don't know how they're going to do that. Same with Astro Smash. Space Battle might be a little bit more tricky, but then again, you have different variants of that. At the end of the day, if Intellivision still has the rights to the original ones, they really lost nothing on these except for they're no longer going to be able to use Astro Blast. I mean, the only big difference with Astro Blast, it was kind of neat at the time because you could use either the joystick or the paddle, right? And everybody loves playing it with the paddle, and it's a very good game that way. But they're different, but they're still the same game. So they still have rights to the original aspects of all those. So did they give up very much by giving that up? I'd have to say no, they didn't. So there's 12 games right now, okay? Couple of the other games, one other game, because it said somewhere more than 12. What could that other game be, right? Like if it was one or two more. And there was a completed version of Sharp Shot actually that was created, but it was never released, probably because of time, because it might have gotten out if it was a kids game back at the time. So there is an M Network completed version of Sharp Shot, which could potentially be part of that package. So now let's get into the other ones. These are the big games for M Network that weren't on the list. And nobody expected them to be on the list, I would hope, because there's other factors involved, okay? And the first one I'm going to show you, it's the only one I don't have the box for. It's Masters of the Universe, The Power of He-Man, right? Because there's a separate license altogether to get the He-Man. So I say, Atari didn't get the rights for this one. They're probably better off not to. I'm not real fond of that game. I'd love to collect it, but the only boxing manual I don't have for these things. The other one are the three Data East games. You got Lock and Chase, you've got Bump and Jump, and you've got Burger Time. All pretty good versions on the Atari for M Network. All pretty good, but at the end of the day, they're not going to get the licensing from Data East to go further with it, or maybe Intellivision still wants to do these three games, right? Because they've looked at releasing those for the Amico if it ever did happen, right? So it would be more significant had they given up these three games, or at least the rights for these, and allowed Atari to work out their own arrangement with Data East, because that would have been significant. That would have been really cutting the lines on the lifelines, I guess we'll say, on the Amico or whatever. But anyway, you also notice it's kind of neat. Bump and Jump has a different style box, and the only other box that's in that style is the one I don't have. It's for Masters of the Universe, and it's pretty cool, really. But anyway, that is the Mattel version of Bump and Jump too. So now the other ones are also licensing issues. You got Kool-Aid Man right here. Again, totally separate game than Kool-Aid Man for the Intellivision, which is very strange, but nonetheless still licensed. I kind of like this. Well, I don't really like the other one. We played on the check out the video. We played on the Astro Smash Mondays High Score Challenge a couple weeks ago. It's very interesting, but at the end of the day, this is just a different game. It's not that bad, to be quite honest. And last but not least, of course, the two other games, which I didn't think they'd ever get, would be the two different Tron games from Disney. And remember I said at the very beginning, Air Raiders was the only one that wasn't the same. Of course, there is a television version of Kool-Aid Man with a totally separate games. That's different than Air Raiders. And then you have Adventures of Tron, which Tron Deadly Disc is great on both systems. This was only released on the Atari by M Network. There was a version made for the Mattel back in the day, but they just didn't deem it good enough quality to release it. So now you can get it on Intellivision because it's been out on Homebrew and for about 10 years or more, and it's also part of the new Tron anthology, which should be on the website for Intellivision Revolution by now. I don't know why it isn't, but isn't yet, I guess. But it's part of that Tron anthology package as well. So it's a interesting game. I like the feel of the M Network game much better. Then we also had other completed but unreleased games that could have been part of this package, and that's Anteater, Locomotion, and Rocky and Bullwinkle. And frankly, I'll just be so surprised if you see anything like that with that separate license be released. I don't even think ROMs are available for these games, but they are supposedly finished. There's also a bunch of unfinished games that were in the M Network library as well, but it's very unlikely you're going to see any of those. I mean, there's a few titles like Blowout from the Party Line that's out now for Intellivision. You can get it from Blue Sky Rangers. Stuff like Computer Corridor, In Search of the Golden Skull, Flapper. There's a whole bunch of different ones like that. But I'll be quite honest, I don't expect to see any of these in the near future. And if they were given up in the deal, their development would require so much further processing that it really doesn't mean anything to whoever gave them up. Now, there's a few games I didn't talk about at all, but you may have noticed in that last graphic, two very big ones that I didn't mention, and that are the two AD&D games, because I really think those are pretty big now. One of them's unfinished, and that's the Tower of Mystery. It was later on finished for the Intellivision as Tower of Doom by INTV Core, but there's no indication that anything was ever done with the M Network version of it. But the AD&D Treasure of Tarman was a finished product for M Network, but it was just never released. Unreleased title. Could that be a big one? Of all the games here, I think that, if it was part of the parcel, or part of that deal, could have somewhat of an impact. There's nothing to say they have to get the AD&D license to go with that game. Atari could really do something with that one. But there's no indication that it was part of the package. So anyway, they're there. Of all the games, I think AD&D Treasure of Tarman could be one that, if expanded upon, get right away from the license, could be the best pickup for Atari if they happen to get it. So anyway, at the end of the day, I'm going to say this, the sale. If this sale is from Intellivision Productions, Intellivision Entertainment, because Intellivision Productions did have it. Of course, that split into Blue Sky Rangers and Intellivision Entertainment. And I believe all the rights for these games went to Intellivision Entertainment. Intellivision Entertainment is now sold them to Atari. And what I'm saying is, all gain for Intellivision Entertainment. There's nothing negative here. They really didn't give up on anything that they weren't quite easily willing to give up. I have no idea this is not a windfall that's going to create anything over the top. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it doesn't answer any questions. People who say, "Oh, this is amazing," no, it's not. It's not that big of a deal. These games were very expendable by whoever had them, and if it was an Intellivision Entertainment, it really makes a lot of sense that this is what happened. And Atari has taken them, and yes, they can make some expanded games on some of them. The vast majority of them, who cares? A few of them, it would be neat to see a new Astro Blast, and they might go somewhere along that line. That's great, but they got to be careful because Astro Smash still is owned by a different company, and they can't tread too heavily into those waters. Anyway, guys, that's my take on the whole situation. I find it very interesting. I find that there's more to come. I don't think this is as big of a deal. I mean, you can get all 12 of them now on the VCS for $5, right? So there's no big windfalls here, but I also don't think it was a huge purchase price either. We'll probably never know that price. But other people have said, "Hey, does this mean if they sold it, they could fund the Amico?" No, I can't fathom that. But and I'm, that's certainly not what I'm saying. I'm saying it probably the opposite. But I think it's a step. If there's any such thing as baby steps, I mean, I guess that's a baby step, I suppose. But anyway, guys, that's it. That's my opinion. I love the M Network games. I still love the M Network games. I was not concerned or upset or anything like that when they sold them to Atari, because I love Atari, and I'm still going to be able to play them on my Atari. And big hairy deal, but it is neat to get into the business side of this whole thing. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough about this. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to hit like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you in the next episode of Papa Pete Reflects. Take care.
Papa Pete, the old ass gamer. Papa Pete, the old ass gamer. If you haven't grown up by the age of...
Hey, this is Ferg from the Atari 2600 Game by Game podcast, and you are watching Papa Pete, the old guy gamer.